As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Hey everyone, welcome in to another season of the Sleeping with the Numbers podcast. Just Dylan here. I will be alone throughout the season. Maybe I bring in a few friends and we can discuss some things, but Pat out doing his thing. More important things than this, honestly. But I'm here. I have nothing better to do, so you're stuck with me. I apologize for that. But, let's have a good season. Let's make some money. We have NFL coming back. We already had the Hall of Fame game, which I don't consider that a game. And I'm sorry I didn't get to you beforehand, but don't bet on the Hall of Fame game. Don't bet on preseason. Both of those are generally bad bets. They can go so many different directions. People aren't playing their starters. Even if they do, as we get further into preseason, they maybe play a quarter or two and get pulled. It just is not worth it because not all of the information is out there. The whole purpose of preseason is to generate information about these teams and about these players. So it's just generally a bad bet, and my advice not to bet on preseason at all. I don't do it. I don't think you should do it. But books are glad to accept that because they'll make money. They always do. So this first episode of the new season, I want to go through, some top tips for sports betting in general, maybe a little hyper focused on the NFL, just because that is what I know, that is what I love. I bet on a lot of things, but the NFL is one I am good at, I enjoy, I understand, and that is where I will give my, I don't want to call it expertise. I don't think it's fair to say that, but I will give my opinions based on data. So before that, let's talk about it. Let's talk about that Hall of Fame game. I'm sure many of you have already started watching the first episode of Hard Knocks. It's going to be exciting. Hard Knocks is always a good show, but now we get Aaron Rodgers and his whole thing brought to the big screen, and Aaron Rodgers is fun. I know a lot of people don't like him. I do. I think it's funny, his whole shtick, but he should be good for this team. The one thing I do love about Hard Knocks is that it is going to get people hyped. People are already hyped about the Jets, and I think it is too much. They were excited for them once they brought in Aaron Rodgers. For sure, that's a good thing for the team. But now they get Hard Knocks, and with Hard Knocks, people are going to get way more excited. They are going to start betting on the Jets. They are going to think they are just going to be the best thing to ever happen in the last 5 years. They have a shot at the Super Bowl. They're definitely going to playoffs. There's nothing that can stop them. Years and years of watching football, and I'm sure years of people being fans of the Jets, that's not true. There are just certain teams that are easy to bet against. The Jets are one of them. The Browns are my favorite team to bet against. But we're not talking about them right now, even though those are the two teams that played in the Hall of Fame game. So while I said I don't bet on preseason, I can't bet against both teams to lose, really, when they're playing each other. So that would be yet another reason I wouldn't be betting on the Hall of Fame game. So what I was saying about Hard Knocks, that is going to drive people to get even more excited for the Jets, if that's possible. Their expected win total, it might drive up a bit. And when it does, I'm going to be waiting, and I will be slamming that under. It is just, it feels too easy. And maybe that's where I'm wrong. But I do not think so. They, for sure, will be an exciting team to watch for, football in general, for fantasy, but expectations are being set a bit too high, especially when we do not have all the data we need to make these conclusions. All they did was replace Zach Wilson. Yeah, that's probably enough, especially when you bring in a future Hall of Famer that is Aaron Rodgers. So, yeah, that's a great step forward. That doesn't change everything. You're still in a tough division. They have the Bills, who are probably the clear favorites. They have New England, who always finds a way to win. And Miami, they're kind of a wild card here, Miami, and I think they might be getting a little bit overlooked. But the long and short of it is, when it comes time for me to talk about my expectations and season-long bets for total wins over unders, I already know I will be taking that under. That's just pretty much expected. So with that said, I am going to be updating my predictions for the NFL season. With each week, we go through the preseason. And finally, as always, we kick off the regular season with our season-long bets. So, let me just give a quick preview of how I have the season playing out so far. I'll just go through standings and then playoff teams. I am going to run through my expectations for playoffs, Super Bowl winners, stuff like that. These are not my bets. Please remember, these are not my actual bets yet. I want to see a lot more things throughout the preseason. People are going to get injured. Teams are going to change. We still have players that need signed. Dalvin Cook, Fournette. Kareem Hunt is supposed to be signing here soon, but is he going to the Colts? Is he going to New Orleans? Those are the things we need to find out before I start making these season-long bets. So each time I update this, it is for that point in time. So let's just run through this really quick, conference by conference, division by division. Let's start with the AFC. The AFC, we are going to start with the AFC West. This feels pretty good. I feel pretty good about where I am here. I don't know how much this is going to change, if anything. The one that has the most wide outcomes, the most variability, probably the Broncos. Javonte somehow is going to get back on the field. I want to see how this team looks under Peyton. So to go through this division first, I have the Chiefs at the top, followed by the Chargers, Broncos, then the Raiders. Now, I'll read off my win and losses I have for each of them, but that's not really what I want you to take from this. So what I do, I run through every game of the season, mark who I think is going to win, get the win-loss. Pretty damn simple. However, with that said, I am not trying to be on the dot with these win-loss totals. What I'm trying to do is get an understanding of where I feel for these teams. Where do I think they'll be? I might have a team completely undefeated. I might have a team with 0 wins. That doesn't mean I'm predicting that. What that really means is, am I taking the over or the under? That's really what it is, because I can think a team is incredibly shitty. Bears, Texans, and I have them with getting only 1 win. Very likely they get more than 1 win. That's just kind of how things go. But the information I'm gathering from this experiment, process, homework, whatever we want to call it, is I know I'm going to bet the under. Because guess what? The Bears and Houston Texans over-under for wins is not going to be like 1.5. It's going to be well above that. Just because they'll get more wins. They'll fall into a win, get lucky here or there, bad break for the other team, whatever. And on the flip side, very difficult for a team to go undefeated. Chiefs, Eagles, they're looking really, really good, as they did last year. They're going to lose some games. That's just how it goes. So again, take these win-loss records that I'm going to present here as just that. Just a way for me to know, am I going over? Am I going under? So Chiefs, I have going 15-2, Chargers 11-6, Broncos 5-12, Raiders 3-14. Next division, my division, the AFC North, which this was a tough one. I try to push my biases aside. That's very difficult to do. But I think I ended up at a fair place here. I have the Bengals finishing in first at 14-3, the Ravens in second at 13-4, the Steelers at 10-7, and the Browns finishing last place in the division at 7-10. And it hurt me to give the Browns 7 wins, let me say that. But, that's their expectations. I talked about it earlier in the episode. Expectations are high for the Browns, just like they are for the Jets. So let's get to the Jets division, the AFC East. Easy to put the Bills at the top. I have them going 14-3. I have the Jets right below them, but tied record-wise with the Patriots. Both of them going 9-8. And then finally the Dolphins at 8-9. So yet another pretty damn close division, much like the AFC North. So that's a division to keep an eye on. In throughout the preseason, I'm going to be watching Hard Knocks. I'm going to be watching these teams play, and maybe I get a better feeling for one team over the other. But the Patriots, they're a team that is hard to bet against. They've done it for just so long. Maybe the personnel just isn't nearly as good as it was with Brady. It obviously isn't. But they find ways to win. And that's what makes a good team. That's what makes a good coach. And Bill Belichick, we know how it goes for them. And then, maybe they get some quote-unquote lucky calls here and there. They seem to always do that. Final division in the AFC, the AFC South. This is also a super close one. At the top and at the bottom. So top two teams, easy. Jags, Titans. I have the Jags currently winning the division at 11-6. Titans at 9-8. And then the two bottom teams, I just think they're going to be horrible. So this is why, again, do not dig too much into or read too much into these win-loss totals. I have the Colts winning only 2 games, 2-15, and the Texans only winning 1 game, 1-16. That just means I'm going to basically bet the under no matter what it is. But hey, maybe we'll gain some more confidence. There's some weird things going around with Jonathan Taylor with the Colts. Hunt might be coming in there like we already talked about. I don't know. Is Stroud going to be enough to kind of boost up the Texans here? Are the Titans adding Hopkins and that's going to push them over the Jags? I don't know. That's why this is just a preliminary kind of draft. See where I'm at heading into the preseason. And then each week I will reevaluate to see if there are any changes in how I predict the season going. Finally, popping it over to the NFC, kicking it off with the NFC East, is the Philadelphia Eagles. I have them at 14-3, followed by the Cowboys at 13-4, the Giants at 7-10, Commanders at 2-15. And the Commanders, I do feel like that is one I'm going to rise on a decent amount. Maybe we get some more clarity on who the quarterback is, and that will kind of help me figure out where I land with this team. But I think the Commanders also have a decent amount of wiggle room, kind of like the Broncos. I have no idea what this team is. So let's take the preseason to figure that out. Next, we'll have the NFC North. We got the Vikings finishing on top. I know Lions, very similar to the Jets. They're basically the Jets of the NFC. A lot of hype behind them. People are really excited for the Lions. And I'll tell you, I think I'm one of them. They draft Jahmyr Gibbs, so they add to that running room. They sign David Montgomery. They have a great backfield. Goff does enough. St. Brown is a PPR machine. Jameson Williams, he has a suspension, but when he comes back, hopefully he can kind of contribute to taking the top off the defense. So we will see how that one goes there. That's another team with a decent amount of variability. With that said, even with the loss of Dalvin Cook, I think the Vikings are just a step ahead of the Lions for the time being. That's why I have them at the top. Third in the division, I got the Packers going 6-11 with Jordan Love under center. There's a lot of question marks around the Packers. A lot of people kind of left them for dead. They're like, oh, they're screwed. They suck. Rodgers is gone. That's the end. I don't think it is. They have good pieces. They are a young team, especially at, the wide receivers. The running backs, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon. Jones is a little bit older, but he's such a threat around the goal line. He just gets touchdowns. And if Jordan Love can use those weapons to his benefit and can kind of, maybe they make the offense a little easier. But also, don't forget, he's been there under Rodgers, learning, watching. And, he wasn't just sitting on his ass. So I think we can expect a bit more from the Packers than what people are saying. So, yeah, keep an eye on that one as well. Especially when we start to actually see the first team offense play. And I got the Bears dead last in the division, dead last in the conference, 1-16. I don't have any faith in the Bears. I am not a Justin Fields dude. I'm not an Ohio State dude. That's just not me. They have not had a successful quarterback in how long? I'm not even just talking Bears. I'm talking Ohio State quarterbacks coming into the NFL. So that is I still feel that way about Justin Fields. I currently do not think he's going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL in the next couple years. Fantasy, take him. He got the legs. He will rack up points that way. It's a cheat code. But for real world football, he's not it. They went out, got him weapon with DJ Moore. I don't know how much it matters. But again, that's where I want this kind of data collection to come in. We'll see what happens. But currently, I have very, very low expectations. Moving on here to the NFC West. I say this all the time, but I am not a huge believer in the 49ers, but because something always happens. And when I say something, I mean injuries. Injuries always happen to this team. It's almost a given. It's the weirdest thing. But they're in a pretty easy division. And they always seem to get wins and finish, on top. So I have them going 13-4, followed by the Seahawks at 10-7. The Rams coming back from the dead. Stafford giving it another year. Hopefully that goes well. I have them going 9-8. And then it's pretty easy to put the Cardinals here at the bottom at 2-15. Doesn't look like they will have Kyler until a few weeks into the season, maybe a month or two. So it was pretty easy to put them at the bottom. Finishing out the NFC with the NFC South. I think all these teams suck. All four of them. I do not think they are good. And so that's why this can shift quite a bit. Currently, I think the team with the best chance and maybe the least amount of movement, even though, different quarterback coming in with Derek Carr and, Kamara suspended. I feel like at the core, they still feel like the same team. So I have the Saints finishing top of this division at 11-6. That feels like a lot of wins for them, but that's just how it ended up here with my first go around. Second, I have the Falcons going 8-9. Bijan coming to town and just doing all the work. They want to be a run-heavy team. They have maybe the best running back in the league with Bijan. Almost immediately. Those expectations are super high. And maybe I'm falling into that trap. So I don't want to hype too much around the addition of just a single player, but it's a good start. And it's not even a winning record. I still have them going 8-9. So we'll see what happens there. Tampa Bay brings in Baker, and apparently it's a battle between him and Kyle Trask, which I just love watching Baker kind of continue to fall. But that's where we're at. I have them going 6-11. A mess of a team. I have no clue what's going on there. Carolina Panthers. Funny enough, this is the team I like the most, but I don't think they're there yet. They are taking the right steps forward. They draft Bryce Young. They get their hopeful quarterback of the future. They bring in Miles Sanders, who is more than capable of handling heavy workload. They're going to pass him the ball. They're going to let him run it. Dual threat. I think Miles Sanders is a someone to keep an eye on here, and obviously he's been kind of getting tooted up for fantasy, and I have been targeting him quite a bit in my drafts. But I got the Panthers 4-13 here. Easy division gives them wins, but rookie quarterback is always difficult. So I do have them finishing last here in the division, but who knows? Maybe they get worked up a little further, and I like them a bit more. Hopping into the playoffs, this is way too early, so again, don't read too much into this. This is just current thoughts of the data I have available to me right now. So the teams I have making the playoffs: Chiefs, Jags, Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, Bills, Chargers, Vikings, Seahawks, 49ers, Lions, Saints, and the Cowboys. For the wild card round, I have the Jags and the Ravens playing against each other. I have Lamar and the Ravens getting that W. The Bengals and the Steelers. We've got 3 AFC North teams here battling it out. Sadly, I don't think my boys, the Steelers, can get it done. I have the Bengals winning that one. The Bills, as much as I don't like it, I would rather the Chargers win, but I get the Bills. I have the Bills currently beating the Chargers. Wild card for the NFC, I have the Seahawks beating the Vikings. This is just kind of a fun one. I think the Vikings might get kind of worn down throughout the season. Let's see what Kirk can do. He's had his troubles in the playoffs, and I'm having that happen here again. 49ers beat the Lions. The Lions make it to the playoffs, so good for them, but the lack of experience is going to have them fall to the Niners. Finally, Saints, Cowboys. It disgusts me that the Saints get home field advantage for this game. That's stupid, but hey, they win the division because they're in a shit division. Doesn't matter. Cowboys beat them and move on to the divisional round. Chiefs, Ravens. Chiefs win that one. Bengals, Bills. Going to be a fantastic game. I do have the Bengals winning that one. But we need to keep an eye on Joe Burrow, right? It sounds like he's going to miss all of preseason. So we need to keep an eye on those reports because that will, without a doubt, affect the outcomes of my kind of predictions here. NFC, Eagles, they'll beat the other birds, the Seahawks. 49ers, Cowboys, I have the Cowboys beating the 49ers. I do feel like I have the Cowboys always making a deep playoff run, and it just never happens. So that might be something else I have to check myself on. Conference finals, Chiefs, they're going to the Super Bowl again after beating Joe Burrow and the Bengals. And then I'm super boring. I have the Eagles beating the Cowboys to go to get yet the same Super Bowl game, Chiefs, Eagles, and I have the exact same outcome with the Chiefs beating the Eagles. So, not a super exciting prediction here for the time being, but we have no new information. If we go just based off the information that we got from last year, Chiefs and Eagles are the best team. It makes sense for them to make it to the Super Bowl. Chiefs won last time. I apologize for being boring, but I will get more exciting as we gather additional data. So let's hop into the main portion of the episode, the essential tips for the sports bettor if you want to do this effectively. And there's a lot of tips. There really are. The ones I'm going to give today are not all of them, obviously. But they're ones that I do find useful, and they are probably the ones that I apply the most anytime I go to make a bet. So let's go with number one. This is something that is relatively new to me in sports betting. And that is the usage of break-even percentages. I read the book, The Logic of Sports Betting, which is a great read. If you have the time, you can find it and give it a read. It goes through quite a few different scenarios, but the main takeaway I got from it was just how useful these break-even percentages are. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about what the break-even percentage is. It is also sometimes called the implied probability. And it really is just that, based on the odds that a book is giving you, you can do a little bit of math, nothing hard, nothing crazy, just a little addition, maybe some subtraction and division. Not that hard. But you have to do a little math and you can calculate the break-even percentage, or guess what? There's calculators online you can use. It's really that easy. But I still want to walk through the actual formula to calculate it on your own. It's just a good way to learn what is the math behind it. Do you really care? Maybe not. But this is how I've learned a lot of math in the past. I was forced to learn formulas and do everything the longhand way before I moved over to a calculator. And I think that is a good approach when you actually want to understand deeper levels of things. So let us do that. How to calculate the break-even percentage. So you are given the odds, American odds, I should say. So usually it's like, minus 120, minus 110, maybe for like a spread or an over-under. There's also positive odds there, right? If you are betting on a dog, they could be like plus 200, something like that. Doesn't matter. Essentially, the bet is the risk divided by the risk plus the win. Pretty easy. So for the positive and negative odds, it's a little different. So let's talk about calculating for plus odds first. So let's just use, plus 130 for our example here. You are going to take 100. So you are saying you're going to risk $100, and you are dividing it by 100 plus 130, or 230. You take that 100 divided by the 230, you're going to get 43.5%. Amazing. For minus odds, a little different. You are going to put the risk to win $100 as the numerator. So let's just think about how odds work. American odds. If your American odds are minus 110, that means you have to bet, you have to risk $110 in order to win $100. That's just how American odds work. So let's do the example this time for the break-even percentage formula using minus odds. So the numerator is going to be 110. Big note here. It's not negative 110. We're not risking negative $110. We're risking $110. Okay? So 110 divided by, this is going to be exactly the same, 100 plus 110. So the final formula, or I'm sorry, if we take it a step further, it's going to be 110 divided by 210, which is going to be 52.4%. Fantastic. We can do math. So you'll notice here, for plus odds, it's always going to be under 50%. And for minus odds, it's going to be over 50%. That makes sense, right? If something is more probable to happen, your payout is going to be less. Right? That makes sense. That makes logical sense. The logic of sports betting, and we did it. We figured it out. And then, of course, if it is exactly even. So even money plus 100 minus 100 is the same thing. It's going to be exactly 50%. 50% outcome, heads, tails, if we did it that way. Even money. Great. We know how to calculate the break-even or implied probability now. Now what? Right? The question then becomes, well, what does that mean? What do we do with that percentage? Why is this so useful, Dylan? Why are you telling us all this? This did nothing. All it did was turn our odds into a percentage. That's stupid. What do we need this for? Let me tell you. Let me tell you what you need it for. The odds that are given by the book, we are creating the implied probability. With this, we can then calculate if there's any edge to taking this bet. And if there is an edge, you should take that bet. That is how I will usually, if not always, decide if I'm going to take a bet or not, is if I believe there is an edge. So how do we calculate edge? Dylan, quit making us do math. It's okay. It's just subtraction. You can do it. So, let's say a very naive approach is, let's just do what we had here with the Hall of Fame game. We had the New York Jets taking on the Cleveland Browns. And let's pretend it's not preseason Hall of Fame game. Let's pretend it's a real game. So go ahead and bet on it, because we're not betting preseason. And let's just say that, well, let's pull up the real odds here. So bear with me for a second while I pull up the real odds of that game. And then we can actually run through it and get calculated an edge if we believe there is any. So we go to NFL. We go to the Hall of Fame game. All right, app, listen here. I would like to see the Hall of Fame game. I believe the Jets were favored. Let me confirm. Jets were -2 favorites. What was the damn money line? The money line was -135. Okay, so let's do the math real quick. -135 for the break-even probability. So we are taking 135 divided by 235, right? We are just adding 100 to 135. So 135 divided by 235, that gives us 57.45%. So what those odds are telling us is they believe there is a 57.45% chance that the Jets are going to win this game. Now, you, as a bettor, need to decide, is there an edge on this bet? So how do you do that? So some more professional bettors and everything, they will make statistical models that will spit out what they believe is the probability of a team winning a game. Pro Football Focus will do this. I believe Action Network does this as well. And we here at Sleeping with the Numbers will also do this. So let's just pretend this is fake. I did not run a model for this game because I don't bet preseason. But let's pretend. I run my simulation. I run my statistical model. It spits out, oh, we believe that the New York Jets actually have a 60% chance of winning. Ooh, that's pretty good. It's bigger than 57%. Let's just round it. So what that means is 60 minus 57. There's about a 3% edge on that bet. You should take that bet because there is an edge. Now let's say we did the opposite. I run my model. It says, oh no, we believe that there's only a 55% chance that the Jets will win this game. So, negative 2% edge. It's not really an edge at that point, but the point is it is less than the implied probability. That means you don't take the bet. Pretty simple. Now, most people don't have a model. That's what you rely on other sites for. That's what hopefully you come to us for. And instead what they do is they just think in their head, right? You know, most people will do this. I give the Jets a 75% chance of winning. All right, what are you basing that on? I mean, Browns just suck. You're not wrong, buddy. You're not wrong. But that's not a great way to do it. I do not recommend that at all. Try to make a mathematical model. If you can't do it on your own, come to us. Come to Pro Football Focus. Go to Action Network. Find someone that is running actual statistics. They have a machine learning model. Whatever they're doing it by hand. Doesn't matter. Have someone calculate the edge for you based on real numbers. Don't go in and be like, no, this is what I believe. You'll lose money that way. So that's really it. That is the whole point of break-even percentages, implied probabilities, whatever you want to call it. And that's how you use them to calculate if there is an edge in making this bet. So, you know, you could get some crazy game, you know, Chiefs versus Houston. And Chiefs will be like minus 1,000 favorites. All right, well, let's plug that in. What does that mean in terms of implied probability? Well, that means 1,000 divided by 1,100, about a 91% chance that the Chiefs will win this game. That sounds accurate, but that's also super high. And we here at Sleeping with the Numbers, we don't take any bet, well, technically less than minus 200. It isn't worth it, because there's still a 9% chance, according to applied probability, that the Texans can win here. It's just not worth it. The reward isn't that much. Probably also should not make that bet, but obviously there's a combination of things to help you determine it. The break-even percentage and calculating the edge, that is a big piece of it. Moving on to my second betting tip. Pretty simple one. There's not a ton to this, so I don't think I'm going to spend a ton of time on it. But it is bet what you know. Only bet on sports you completely understand. Football is mine. I don't bet on soccer. I mean, like, I understand the game. I understand the rules. I don't know the players. I don't know the teams. I don't pay attention at all to soccer. That's what I had Pat for. So I probably, in good faith, should not be betting on soccer because I don't know enough about it. But the same can be said for types of bets. Let's say, oh, I love football. I watch every single game, every season. I know football a ton. Awesome. Cool. You know about spreads? Ooh, no, I don't know about spreads. Yeah, well, spreads, one, we can teach you. We can teach you what spreads are. You can learn. But if you're uncomfortable with kind of knowing how the spread works and want to make a bet, you should probably think twice on that, just because it will help you in the long run. Find the bets that you understand. Money line, super easy. Who's going to win the game? Easy enough. If you are just getting into sports betting, I would probably only bet the money line. That is just an easy way to get familiar with sports betting, getting comfortable with losing money, because guess what? Long run, you're losing money. Over under, another simple one. They scored more points than that. Yeah. No? Okay. Bet over, bet under, you know. So only bet what you know and what you understand. No, it's all the same shit. If you're not good at player props, don't bet them. Bet what you know. Bet what you are good at. I know that sounds super basic, and it is. Some of these are very basic. Tip number 3, time your bets. This is a tricky one because you don't know until it's too late if you timed your bets correctly or not. Most of the time. So, you know, if we're early preseason now, and Joe Burrow is injured, he's going to miss the preseason. Every sportsbook, as soon as that news broke that he got hurt, they took down basically every bet for the Bengals. They're like, we don't have this information. We're not going to let anyone bet on it. And then, once it came out that, it's going to keep them from playing preseason, it sounds like, but it's not season ending, something like that. Odds come back up. With that said, if you bet, let's just say season total wins for the Bengals before the Joe Burrow injury, you might have overpaid in a sense. Because let's say I'm using fake numbers here. The win total for the Bengals pre-Joe Burrow injury was 11.5. It might have gone down, probably not super far, but after what was known about the injury came out, it might have gone down to 10.5. Oh shit. You already bet on the 11.5. I should say the over on the 11.5. That's not good. You kind of overpaid. You need one more win than what the line is now. So being able to time those bets is crucial. And that's why I kind of wait till the last minute to do those season-long bets. I'm not going to really know if I overpaid or underpaid, but I will have the most amount of information I possibly can at the time of betting, which is generally right before week 1 starts for me. So that's what I like to do, is you got to time your bets. Same thing can kind of be done week to week. And what a trend is, and this is sometimes difficult, you have to pay attention to books and see when they put out their odds, how often they move them, stuff like that. But in a lot of cases, what the data shows is to bet on the favorite early and bet the underdogs late. Now, why? Why would we want to do that? Well, because early on, the sportsbook sets their line. Let's just say, let's do Baltimore Steelers. Baltimore probably favorite. Let's say they come in as a minus 150 favorite against the Steelers on Monday. And as the week progresses, more and more people are going to bet. More experienced bettors are going to bet. The bookmakers are going to be like, oh, this person's very sharp on the bets they make, and they are hammering the minus 150 for the Ravens. We must have that line too low. So then it gets bumped up to minus 175 by Thursday. And then by Sunday, when it's game time, they're at minus 200. Now, that might be a bit drastic of a move from minus 150 to 200, but things happen. That can happen. And generally, it makes sense to bet on the favorite early, just because those odds in your favor go down as the line can move as we get closer to the game. Underdogs, you bet late because it's the exact opposite. If the favorite is getting more and more money thrown at it, more sharp bettors are betting on the favorite, the line gets worse and worse in terms of payout, the underdogs odds are getting better. So have that conviction of who you want to bet on early. And then if it is the favorite, bet on them early. And if it's the dog, wait until Sunday morning. And generally, you will get a better price for these bets if you time them properly. There's some cool tools. I think Action Network will kind of calculate your closing line value, which does that. It tells you how much value you got by looking at the odds of when you made the bet versus the odds of the closing line. And you can see, are you good at that or not? If it's a positive percentage and it's green, obviously it's good. If it's a minus percentage and it's red, it might be gray, I don't remember. Obviously, get a little better at timing your bets, but that is a way to track it on Action Network. Pretty good tool for doing such a thing. The next tip here applies to not just sports betting, but really any gambling in general. You need to be able to manage your bankroll. You need to understand what you can afford to lose. And probably the key thing there is you should expect to lose. So do not bet money that you're not prepared to lose. Nothing's a guarantee. We talked about that with the break-even things. Someone could be minus 2,000 favorites. Implied probability, I'm not going to do the math, of 95%, whatever the hell that is. 5% chance you still lose that. And even if you win, the return isn't even that much. So nothing is guaranteed. So you need to be able to understand that bet only what you can afford to lose. If you're already in a hole, don't dig the hole any damn deeper. Betting should be fun. That should be the whole point of this. However, if you're going to gamble, you need to be well-versed and comfortable setting your limits, knowing yourself, not chase losses, etc. So how do you do that? There's a million different ways, and not one way is correct. Well, I said there's not only one correct way is what I should say. That sounded like I was saying they're all wrong. Bet all your money. No, don't do that, please. But I come into the football season, and I will generally have a budget in mind to play across all my bets, whether it's actual sports betting, DFS, best ball and underdog. I have a total amount I want to put towards the season, and I will not go any further. You set those budgets to what you're able to afford. Now, some good ways to kind of keep you from doing that. There's apps that I know DraftKings will do it. FanDuel probably has it. You can set limits for yourself on the app. That way, you might try to force yourself. Oh, no, I gotta add more money. I gotta make this bet right now. And the app itself will not let you. That is a great way to prevent yourself from betting when you shouldn't, when you're over budget. You can tell these books what your limit is, and it will hold you to that. There's not an easy way around it, as there shouldn't be. It should be difficult to get back in. So, much like the screen time on the iPhone, you can set all the limits you want for your games. You're like, oh, I shouldn't be on Reddit for more than 3 hours a day. That's probably even still a lot, but you shouldn't be on Reddit for more than 3 hours a day. And you hit the time limit. Guess what? You just put in your passcode. You get to keep going. That's a very soft wall that's easy to get through. The walls that are put up by these sports books are a lot more difficult to get around, as they should be. So yeah, when you're betting, have a budget, for the season, for the week, for a game, break it down in that way. I might say, oh, I want to put $500 towards fantasy football this year across all my leagues. I want to do $500, no more. That's my limit, and you stick to that limit. So it's a lot of determination and knowing yourself that can prevent you from spending too much. But if you don't have that self-control, these apps can kind of help limit that as well. So this one, it's a lot of these tips aren't fun, and I apologize. The first couple, they were fun. Break-even percentages are such a great tool and way to understand when you have an edge at betting. A lot of these other ones are really just mental things that you need to do for yourself to protect yourself from losing way too much money. And that goes into my final tip, which is the most boring tip of all. Don't bet. And that sounds weird coming from a sports betting podcast, but know when to not bet. This is a couple things. It's one, if you can't afford it, don't bet. That's part one of this. The other thing, when I say don't bet, is when a game is questionable. You have no idea what's going to happen in this game. It's a complete coin toss. Yes, run your break-even percentages, run your models, calculate if there's an edge, but that's only part one of the equation. You can do that all you want, but even that, if there's something in your mind, you're like, nah, something's off. I don't have all the data. They're starting a backup quarterback, and it feels like I should be betting against them, but the team that they're playing is so bad. There's a lot of questions coming around a single bet. Just don't bet it. Just watch and see what happens when it plays out. Or even on Action Network, if you don't want to make the bet, but you still want to kind of track it to see what happens, go ahead and do that. That's kind of a fun way to keep track. And then it is a mental thing, because if the bet does hit the one that you were planning to place and then you don't place it, that does hurt. That does hurt sometimes. But it is, in the long run, the best move. If you are uncomfortable making a bet, do not do it. Do not give in to any pressure of, people like, oh, you should definitely make that bet. That's a great bet. It's not their money. Same thing with betting shows, ours included. I can tell you with all the confidence in the world that, I'm 100% betting this team. This is a great bet. But if you disagree with me, do not take that bet. That I don't know. I'm only using the data I'm provided with to give these my suggestions. But if I'm not comfortable making a bet for one reason or another, just don't do it. It's not worth it. And I know that is a horribly boring tip, but it is a good one that all sports bettors, all gamblers in general, should understand. Sometimes it's just fun to sit back and watch. By week 13, 14, I'm pretty exhausted with betting and all that. It's the highs and the lows, and it's fun, but at the same time, it can deteriorate your mental stability if not played correctly. But that will do it for the tips for the NFL betting season, sports betting in general. I hope it's helpful. I do still believe that the first one I talked about, the break-even percentages, is such an important thing, and really the one you should start with anytime you go to make a bet. Calculate the break-even percentage. Use a model that you made, that we made, or somewhere else. Find out if there might actually be an edge, and then use that as the starting point of whether or not you should take a bet. I think that is probably my favorite tip here, and one that has completely changed how I gamble. That'll do it for the show. It's good to be back. We'll get these going weekly. Once again, you'll have to deal with me throughout the football season. And we got some preseason football. At the time of this recording, the Hall of Fame game has taken place. The Houston Texans beat the Patriots, and I think Seattle had a game. I need to look. I'm not paying a ton of attention to preseason in terms of box scores or anything like that. I go back, watch some film to see what I see. That's how you can kind of gather this data. Yes, Minnesota played Seattle. Seattle won 24-13. Again, don't bet on these games. They're kind of fun. I was hoping to see a bit more of JSN. He went 3 for 25, but it's super early. There's only 3 preseason games, and you don't get as much data as you used to. So, keep an eye on that. I'll be running through this every week from here to the end of the season, and hope you join me along the way. We'll see you.